everyone, this is Lauren and this is my channel, Miss Sunny Gamer. I'm here today to talk about what I read in June. I read a lot of books last month, so this is gonna be a bit lengthy video maybe. I'm thinking next time I do this I might split it up in a mid-month review and a full overall month review, but for now, since I did start making videos close to the end of June, it was a bit too late to do that, so we're just gonna have to put up with a long video for now. Anyway, before I get started with talking with specific books that I read, I just want to start off with a few stats. I'm not really good at keeping track of them right now. I don't have a good setup for that. For now, though, I'm just calculated up some handwritten stuff, so sorry if some of them are a little off. So in June, I read 20 books total. That's a lot of books, but a lot of them were pretty short. I didn't keep track of page count, but you'll see what I mean with the genre. For genres, I read 6 fantasy books, ranging from like higher fantasy to more urban fantasy, 3 sci-fi books, 1 short story compilation, 1 graphic novel, and 9 manga volumes. As you can see, the bulk of it is manga, hence why I read so much in June. As for star rating, I rated 1 book 1 star, 4 books 2 star, 8 books 3 star, 3 books 4 star, and 3 books 5 star. And if I calculated that out correctly, that's an average of 3.0 star rating. So just looking at that, most of the books I read were kind of in the middle, which is a bit unfortunate, but I think I forced myself to read a few books, and just some books I was excited for and didn't pan out very well, I guess. But you can't have all months be winners, unfortunately. With that out of the way, let's get started with the books. The first book I read most of it in May, I finished it off in June, and that is Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. It's the first book in the Riria Revelations series. It's a bind-up of the first 2 books, The Crown Conspiracy and Alvin Partha. This book follows Royce and Hadrian, who are 2 mercenary kind of guys, and they have been framed for murder of the king and are trying to figure out who tried to frame them and who murdered the king, and just trying to overall escape the pursuers. Going into it, I wasn't really expecting much from this book. I kind of read the synopsis and I wasn't really too interested in it initially. I don't know, it just kind of seemed like there was nothing there that really sparked a big interest. However, the writing is well done enough for me to really enjoy it, and the 2 main characters are a lot of fun. They are both really good at what they do, and they're just badasses. They're a lot of fun and they play off each other really well, and even when they're not in battles, they're just kind of badass about it, like talking people down and that kind of thing. So I really like that. There were some parts in here that were a bit slow with a lot of politics stuff, and there's just a lot of factions and kings and high officials and a lot of scheming going involved. I did like that in the end, but it was a little bit hard for me to follow at times, and it did slow it down a little bit. However, most of the book is just a lot of fun and fast-paced, and I probably would have read this really fast if I wasn't in school with finals and stuff. So despite a few negatives, overall I rated this a 5 star. I'm really looking forward to reading the sequels as well. The next book I read was Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. This is the second book in the Murderbot series. It follows a guy named Murderbot who's kind of this cyborg guy, and he's supposed to be following orders for mercenary type jobs. However, he overrides his governing module system, which kind of gains him access to free will of sorts, and all he wants to do is watch videos all day, essentially. However, he kind of needs to learn how to blend in with society as a murder bot that isn't murdering and following orders and stuff. So this takes place right after the first novella, so it's kind of spoiler, I guess, to go too much into the exact plot of this. But I kind of like this better than the first volume. You get more of Murderbot's personality, and he has a lot more freedom in this to try and figure out what he wants to do, actually. Overall, I really enjoyed this, and it was a blast to read. So I gave this a 5-star rating. The next book I read was an ebook version of The Tea Master and the Detective by Eliette de Bodard. This one is a novella, and it's a retelling of sorts of Sherlock Holmes, but it takes place in space, and Holmes is a sentient ship, and Sherlock in here is a woman detective of sorts, I think. This follows the two characters, and they're trying to solve like a murder, sort of. It's hard to explain the plot a little bit because it is a novella. It's like 90 pages or something like that. It's very short. When I went into this, I was really interested in the premise, like the sentient ship, and I think the world is kind of Chinese inspired. However, my biggest problem with this is that a lot of the characters' actions didn't really make much sense to me. Like, they would say, I need to go over to this place, and it's like, why are we going to there? I don't know why. There were a lot of things that weren't really explained either. I think this takes place in some sort of established universe, but I think it can be read alone. However, just reading this, I didn't really understand some of the things, and there were some other things in here that weren't explained at first, and then when the event happened again, it was explained. For example, earlier on, the ship character is described as like having tea with someone. But I was thinking, how the heck does a ship have tea? Like, I'm not really sure how. The first time it happened, the book didn't explain that at all. However, later on, the ship had tea again, and then the book described how the ship had tea. I'm like, why are you doing this now? It already happened. So overall, it was just really confusing. I didn't really enjoy anything that happened in the book, and it was really slow for such a small book, I thought. So overall, I really didn't like this. I gave it a 1 star. The next book I read was Faust Volume 1. It's a short story compilation by a bunch of different authors. I mostly picked this up because it has a story by Nishio Isin, and I really like his Monogatari series. The stories in here are translated from a magazine in Japan called Faust. These are mostly short stories, but there's like a few essays, and there's also a few manga in the back as well. I don't usually read a lot of short stories because I don't know where to look for that kind of thing, so I guess I wasn't really sure what to expect with this. There were some stories that I did like in this. Like, I did like Nishio Isin's story. His story involved an existing Clamp series called Holic, and it's just kind of like a extra story, I guess, like a side story. There was another story in here that I liked where two girls find some Doraemon gadgets and mess around with them. The manga in the back I also really liked, even if they were really short. However, most of the stories in here I was only kind of okay with. I ended up being pretty bored reading most of them. There's also one story in here that I completely skipped because it was way too gory and sexual and all the things. I don't handle dark and gory stuff very well, so that one story just was like, nope, skipping that. So I did like some things, I didn't really like some others. I think overall I was only okay with most of them, so I gave this a 3 out of 5 star. The next book I read was another ebook. Sorry if I mess up the title because it's very long. It's The Utterly Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant by Drew Hayes. This one is about a guy who's just kind of ordinary and not very interesting. He gets turned into a vampire and kind of continues being a normal guy other than He doesn't go out in the sun at all. He then kind of stumbles into other supernatural stuff and finds a girl that he really likes who deals with a lot of the supernatural stuff as well. So he's kind of thrown into all the action and shenanigans, kind of. When I was reading this book, I was really interested in the premise. It sounded kind of funny and just like silly. I was hooked with it in the beginning, but unfortunately as it went on, there was just more and more really weird, silly things tacked in there. Like there's a werepony, and I think that's supposed to be funny. It's like a werepony. It's not a werewolf. Isn't that silly? And I just need a bit more than that for a joke. I'm not really saying this is a bad book, but however, since I think most of the book is heavily riding on its ability to make you laugh, and I didn't really laugh at all, it really fell short for me. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is the first book in the Darker Shades of Magic series. It involves a bunch of different parallel worlds called Red London, Black London, White London, and Grey London. Main character in this series can travel between these 4 different Londons. One day he kind of stumbles upon an artifact that should not exist, and he needs to figure out a way to get rid of it, while avoiding pursuers who want this item. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this. There are some people that really like it, and there are some people that really don't. I wasn't really sure where I'd fall in that spectrum, and I think overall I really liked it. It was a bit of a slow start for me, because I didn't really like the main character that much. I thought his powers were kind of cool, but he didn't end up doing that much badass kick butt type thing that I generally really like. I think maybe you wouldn't like this book if you wanted something a little bit more plot focused, I guess, because it does really meander a little bit. However, I was kind of hooked in by the overall premise, I guess. It's hard to describe why I like this. I guess I just really like the writing, and like the conflict, I guess, was interesting enough for me. Overall, I really like this book. I initially gave it a 5 star. I might consider lowering it to a 4 star, just because of how slow it kind of is. Overall though, I still really liked it, and I'm looking forward to the next books in the series. The next book I read was a digital copy of The Girl Who Is Plugged In by James Tiptree Jr. This is not something I normally would have read, but it fit for a prompt on the r/fantasy bingo. I was having a hard time finding something for that prompt, and this one was only 35 pages or so, so I was like, yay, short book. This book kind of takes place in this dystopian-esque sci-fi world, I think, and it stars a woman who's kind of scarred and considered to be really ugly and really poor and doesn't really have anything going for her. She's given a chance to live a life of a superstar. Essentially, she gets plugged into a machine, and through that she controls a body of a gorgeous supermodel. The only condition is that she needs to advertise for this company. In this universe, advertising is technically illegal, but how they get around that is they use her to use their products in public spaces and kind of just pretend that she's enjoying them, I guess. This is kind of an interesting book. It's not really something that I normally would have read. I think overall I didn't really like it. It was pretty surprising that it was a pretty cohesive story from the beginning to the end with only 30-some pages. It's kind of an interesting look a little bit on what could have happened or could happen in the future, because I think this was written in the 70s or something. However, for me, I don't really like grimmy, miserable type books, and that's kind of what this is. And the bigger problem for me is that the book is narrated in this very stream of consciousness type style, and it kind of just rolls around wherever it feels like sometimes. I think I tend to like a bit more structure in my narration, at least. So that kind of just didn't really fit well with me. So while I think some other people could like this, I gave this a 2 out of 5 star. The next book I read, which is the last digital book that I read, was The Thief Who Pulled on Trouble's Braids by Michael McClung. This book is about a thief who is given a statue from her friend, and she's told to take care of it until the morning and he'll come pick it back up then. However, the morning comes and the main character finds that her friend is dead. Throughout the book, she has to figure out who killed her friend, what's up with this statue, and she also has to try and avoid the people who really want this statue. I was hooked initially in the beginning because the premise seemed kind of interesting a little bit, and also the main character is this woman thief who is really strong and doesn't take any BS from anybody. I really liked it initially, and at first the plot seemed to be moving at a pretty good pace. However, in kind of the middle and kind of the end a little bit as well, the book started getting kind of slow, and I wasn't really sure where the plot was going, where the characters needed to go. It just felt like the characters weren't really figuring anything out until right at the very end. So it kind of just felt like it was dragged along really slow, and there were a few times that I wasn't sure why certain characters were doing certain things either. I think maybe if it was a bit shorter, like some of it was cut down a little bit, maybe I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. For me, I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Sinan McGuire. I still don't know how to pronounce the name. This is about a bunch of kids who are sent to this school because they had all found a door and were sent off to a different land, and all of them came back to the real world, but they really want to go back. From the parents' side, it's supposed to try and get them to stop talking about these worlds that they don't think exist. And from the student side, it's supposed to let them come to terms with the fact that they might not be able to go back to the world that they want to go to. This is the first book in the Wayward Children series. And this kind of serves as an introduction to what the worlds are and what the school is. And some other things happen in the school that the characters have to try and figure out what to do with. I really like this book. The different worlds were really, really interesting, and I did like the main character and a few of the other characters as well. There was a really good plot twist near the end as well. I wasn't really expecting, and I thought it was written pretty well. There were a few characters that I thought were really, really annoying and I didn't really care for, but I think mostly overall I really enjoyed reading this, and I want to read more books in the series. I gave this a 4 out of 5 star. The next book I read, which is my graphic novel read of the month, Wasted Talent, Welcome to the Real World by Angela Melick. It's a physical copy of some of the strips from the Wasted Talent webcomic, and they follow the author on various things throughout her life. This volume in particular, I think it's the second of 5 volumes. It follows her adventures after graduating from college and finding a job and learning about her job that she does get and some other various scenarios with her friends and finding houses and that kind of thing. This is one that I've had for quite a while, and I did really like it before. It's really well drawn, and I think overall they're pretty well done. However, the problem with this is that a lot of the kind of punchlines and things are based around the area that she lives in, which is like the Vancouver area. The problem with that is that I don't super duper know the Vancouver area well. I grew up in Canada, but not in that area. And so a lot of the jokes kind of fall flat unless you flip back and forth between the back of the book for the footnotes. And some of them I did get, and I just wasn't really a fan of the punchline, I guess. This is kind of another one where the humor didn't really sit well with me, and so I didn't really enjoy it that much. There's definitely a lot of care and work that went into this, and I do appreciate the nice art. So in the end, I gave it a 3 out of 5 star. The next book I read was the first volume I read for June, and that was Haikyuu Volume 1 by Haruichi Furudate. This series is about these two characters, and they both really want to do volleyball and competition and overcome obstacles to be the best volleyball. They want to compete in some final tournament or something, I don't know. I don't really know sports super well, and this is not something I normally would have picked up. However, I saw clips of the anime and I thought that looked a lot of fun, and I usually try and read the manga first, so that's why I kind of picked this up. However, I didn't really enjoy reading this as much as I did watching bits of the anime. I think for me, the action is kind of lost in drawn out form and as opposed to animation, so the impact didn't really hit me super well. As well, I don't really like the art for some of the characters. It kind of looks a little derpy. I'm sure it improves later, but as it stands right now, I think I would much rather watch the anime than continue reading this. The characters are pretty fun though, and I think I could like the story and stuff, but I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was one that's been in my collection for a really long time, and that is Angel Dust by Aoi Nanase. This is kind of a one-shot. This girl comes across this angel-type person, and the main character finds out this angel person can merge with humans and combine into this fighting angel-type thing. The angel person is trying to find out where their planet is. And the main character is trying to figure out what the heck is this angel person, what are they doing here, and that kind of thing. This isn't bad for a manga, I feel like. What's here isn't super amazing plot-wise. I think maybe the problem is that since it's a one-shot, they can't really expand on a whole bunch. So there wasn't really much meat for me to chew on. I did really like the characters, and the art is also pretty nice. Minus a few, I think that might be a problem with my copy, some of the lines get cut off weird. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but at the end of it, I was just like, okay, that was fine. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Also, this is a weirdly shaped manga. Like with Haikyuu, it's a pretty standard volume. It's the same height, but it's just more square for some reason. I don't really know why, but there you go. The next book is kind of a sequel to Angel Dust, and that is Angel Dust Neo, also by Aoi Nanase. It's technically not a sequel, because it's new characters and it's a new scenario. It doesn't really reference the old book either, so that's why it's not super sequel, but it's in the same world and that kind of thing. It's about this guy who finds all these angel people, and they all really want to be with him for some reason. And the main character has to figure out who these angel people are and why they all want to be with him, and the angel people also want to find out where their home planet is. So it's really similar to Angel Dust, and that's really my big gripe with this, or at least one of my big gripes. In the first book, they have these questions about who these angel people are, where the home planet of these angel people is. So this book also asks those same questions, which were answered in the original book. It does add a new question of why all these people want to assimilate with this main character. However, that question is never answered. In fact, no questions are ever answered in this book. I feel like the mangaka wanted to expand maybe into future volumes. However, at the end, they also say that they had more ideas. However, they just wanted to end it at where it ends now as a happy point. And I'm like, that's really weird. Because, like, they don't really do anything. Nothing really gets answered. And it's like, it's so frustrating because I feel like they could have expanded on it more. They could have used the time to instead be more of a sequel that could answer more things. I don't know. The art's really nice still, and I mean, the overall premise is fine. I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5 star. The next book I read was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn series. The Well of Ascension kind of takes place right after the events in the first book, so I can't really explain too much about this one, specific plot-wise. The world is kind of centered around these people called allomancers who can ingest metals to gain various powers, and Mistborns who can use all the metals instead of just one like normal allomancers. It stars Vin and a band of other allomancers who want to try and overrule a kind of tyrant ruler called Lord Ruler, and they just want to get rid of him to have their own freedom. I really liked the first book. I think I gave it a 5 star. As you might imagine, I was really looking forward to this book. However, this book is very slow. It has a lot of politics stuff that doesn't really end up having too much of a point, in my opinion. And there's a lot of humming and hawing about like, oh, there's this new thing, what are we gonna do about it? I don't know, and blah blah blah, and just like, oh, get on with it. There's like nothing for me to chew on because they're humming and hawing about stuff that is going on in here, and they don't figure out much of anything until close to the end. So I'm like, I don't care about your humming and hawing, give me some piece of info to chew on, you know? There's also a new character in here who's a Mistborn, and there's a bunch of interactions between Vin and this new Mistborn, and it's like romancy type stuff, but she's already with another character named Elend, and it's like, why would Vin go with this rando when she has Elend? I don't know. I didn't really care for those sections. And one of the other biggest things that I had problems with is that there's so many sections where Vin and Elend are thinking to themselves and discussing with other people about, oh, I wonder if they like me. I don't think they do. Like, Vin goes, oh man, Elend is so great, he doesn't deserve someone like me, because I grew up in the ditches and I'm a shitty person. And then Elend goes, oh, Vin knows how badass she is. I don't think she would want to stick with me, who can't do like anything. I'm like, oh my god, you guys, stop it. It was so frustrating, and it wasn't really until the very end, like the last 40 pages or something like that, where it's like, ooh, big revelations, but obviously tune into next time to figure out what happens next, kind of thing. So this is just like, it could have been cut down so much. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that is not really necessary, I feel like. I'm not judging Brandon Sanderson's storytelling just based off of this one, because it is an early book of his, but as it stands, I was really frustrated with his book, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 star. Because I did like some parts of it, but I didn't like a lot of parts too. For the last 6 books, I read a full series of a manga called Magical Miracle, and that includes Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 5, and Volume 6 by Yuzu Mizutani. This is a series that is very nostalgic to me since I've had this one volume forever. This is one of the first manga volumes that I ever owned, so there is some nostalgic feeling here for me. I didn't actually own the rest though until really recently. I think I have read the whole series online, but this is the first time that I've read the full series in physical format. This is a series about a girl who is kind of kidnapped by one of these city officials, and him and a bunch of these other officials need her. She looks a lot like a really important figure called the Master Wizard, and he has been missing for quite some time. So they need her to pretend to be the Master Wizard until they can find him again. This is kind of like a shoujo manga, and it's really light and fluffy. A lot of the things in here, she deals with trying to learn how to be a magician in school, and also trying to figure out how to pose as the Master Wizard. Because she's just like a commoner, she doesn't know manners, she doesn't know politics. I really liked this when I originally had it years and years ago, and I think I still kind of like it now. I think my excitement for this has died down quite a bit since I originally read it. Hey guys, sorry for this different camera angle. I just found out my camera only does 30 minutes of footage at a time, and so I lost a whole bunch of footage and I didn't know, so now I'm just recording on my phone. So with Magical Miracle, I was fine with it overall, but the big problem that I had with it was that it focused a lot on the school aspect of that, which I thought was the least original part of the series. There are quite a few volumes that focus more on the school aspect instead of the pretending to be the Master Wizard kind of thing, and I didn't really like that. I like the more original Master Wizard sections better. I gave most of the volumes a 3-star, however I gave 2 of the volumes a 4-star because they focus more on the Master Wizard aspect. And with that, that was a really long video. I'm pretty sure next time I'll divide it up into 2 videos instead for time. If you watched all that, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you read any of these books, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you read something else that you really liked or maybe didn't like in June, also you can let me know that in the comments. And with that, I hope to see you again for another video. Bye!